4 years since Proposition HHH, the billion-dollar bond measure to help provide homeless housing, was approved. Yet many people are frustrated with the lack of progress in housing that's resulted since. LA City Controller, Ron Galperin joins us now to talk about some new approaches that might help bring costs down and get more people housed. Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Very good to be with you. Thank you.
What are the new approaches? Because it doesn't look like things are getting better.
Well, I believe that homelessness, besides, of course, COVID, is really the existentialist crisis that we have been facing in Los Angeles. And shockingly, there are 4 people a day who are dying on our streets, which is utterly unconscionable in a city such as Los Angeles. I've done a number of audits as controller of the city of LA, looking at outreach activities, looking at how we are spending bond money. I believe that we have an opportunity now that COVID is beginning to subside. CDC guidelines are going to be changing in terms of how we can handle matters that are happening on our sidewalks, tragically. And also, we're going to be getting $1.35 billion from the federal government over the course of this next year. And we're very hopeful that some of that can be put to use for much needed approaches to those who are experiencing homelessness, get stuff built faster and much more cheaply.
But Ron, money really hasn't been the problem. In 4 years, fewer than 500 units are ready to be occupied. Why is that number so low? And should the focus be on converting maybe buildings or even just a warehouse that you can put beds in?
These are exactly the kind of recommendations that I have, because it was 4.5 years ago that the voters approved a bond measure for $1.2 billion. Of that, we've only floated about $360 million, only spent about half of that, and as you note, have only created about 500 units with that money. I think now's an opportunity to look at how do we do hotel conversions, how do we do other kinds of adaptive reuse, how do we use trailers, you name it, anything and everything to help get people off the street, because taking 3 to 6 years and spending $530,000 a door is a very expensive and time-consuming way to do it.
Also, Ron, substance abuse, always a big problem with this issue. Do we have a sense of how big that problem is? Because if you take somebody who's got a drug addiction problem and put them in a $500,000 condo, you're not necessarily going to fix anything, are you?
Well, first of all, what we need is, when we have permanent housing, that it should be permanent supportive housing, especially for those who need it. But much more immediately, I think that we need to be investing in clinical environments for people who really have some severe physical needs, some tremendous needs in terms of mental health care and other care, almost in some cases like a hospital-like environment. And that's about getting people stabilized enough that they can go to the next step.
All right, Ron, we could talk about this all day. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for providing some insight into what's going on with the homeless crisis. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you. I really hope that people will continue to follow it and put pressure on their elected officials to get more of this done.
All right. Thanks again.
Really good interview there. 500 units in 3 to 4 years.
Yeah,
wow.
and the problem seems to be getting worse by the day.
It does. Hopefully we can get a solution. Coming up.